Hey subscribers, wanted to do a quick video, show you how I do some of my repairs. I had a little mishap with the with my FMS Extra 300. I ended up catching some brush with just the wheel pants, and that right here, I like clipped it right here. It didn't break the prop, but what it did was it broke the nose off from the landing gear plate, and there was a crack all the way up here to the battery hatch and duplicate on the same side. It was a nice clean break, and I was able to fit it back together pretty nicely. And I mixed up some 30-minute epoxy and some micro balloons. You might have seen in my other videos that's what I like to use to repair foam. I know you can use CA on some of these planes, but CA is a brittle joint. It doesn't have the flexibility that epoxy has. And the micro balloons, which is basically just milled fiberglass, you can go in your hobby shop or just do a Google search or search online, like Tower Hobbies or whatever, for micro balloons. And you mix that in your epoxy. It turns it white or whitish, depending on how clear your epoxy is. So it lends itself to making a pretty nice, camouflaged repair until you get up into any painted sections. But on white foam, it works great. So let's go over to the workbench and I'll show you where I'm at with this repair. Okay, here's the Extra 300S from FMS. And this is where I broke it. Right here comes down to the landing gear plate. And then it was completely nice and clean. It just came right apart clean at that joint right there. It just actually came apart like in here. To that point, when you get these planes, I always tell people, whatever you can do, take a fingernail, lift up on these edges, pry on them a little bit before you put the plane together. Make sure those are glued in solidly. My experience, I'm not going to say none of them are. Actually, I have said that in the past, but I won't say it today. I guess I just did. A lot of those pieces are glued in poorly. These are mass produced, and they make them fast. You know, time is money. So, anyways, it broke here. Same way on the other side. And I was lucky. You know, this was not a hard hit. I was going maybe a little over half speed, half throttle. But take it out of the stand. And that's just, that black right there is not missing foam. I don't know if it's focusing. That's just a skid mark of some sort. I think that's actually from my the black foam on my cradle. Okay, so I had a really clean joint. I was really satisfied with it. The thrust line for the motor, everything lined up. I dry fitted everything with tape. I put the front of the cowl back on, put the spinner on. I actually bent this piece. This thing bent like a coat hanger. I mean, it was like over here. It came right at the base here. It just bent over like 30 degrees. Took some of the hit, and the motor's fine, and the firewall, the motor mount was loose. Again, getting a little off topic here, but where that plastic, see that plastic ring, where in the upper left hand corner, you see the piece of the X mount. That plastic ring that's glued in, see right there? It was only glued in on this side of the fuselage, and then from the factory, and then on this side of the ring, on that side over there, it had like a dab of glue. So it was, and even being experienced with the foam planes, the FMS, and going over that, I didn't notice it, but I was really surprised when this broke off and I had to take the motor out and start repairing things. I was really surprised how it was just a crappy glue joint. It was really poor. I think even an inexperienced modeler, if they were had to glue that in as part of the assembly process with a new plane, I think even like a brand new modeler would have done a better job. So I don't think it's anything other than time is money, and FMS really needs to step it up with quality control. And it's really something that once it's put together, the boss, like the father and son team that own FMS, they can't come along and say, well, you didn't glue that in good. They can't see it. So they really need to sit down with their employees and go over that. But so getting back to this, what I did was I had a really clean joint. The two pieces fit together very nicely. From 10 feet away, you couldn't even see the repair. My wife came into the room and she said, is that a different plane? And what I did was I took my Dremel and I just put this tip on it. You know, you can use different ones. But this is like, it's almost like stone, like a sandstone. I don't know if that's focusing well or not. You can catch the grain of that. But I came in and what I did was I just routed out a little channel in here just to widen that up a little bit. So there's a place for me to mix up some more 30-minute epoxy and micro balloons. And then I tape some of this off, and you will lift paint like that right there. Even though this has Minwax poly on it, it's still pulled the paint off. Here's another example down here. I don't remember why I had tape on the tail, but that was after poly was applied, and it still lifted the finish off. So, so this gives me a nice channel. I turn the plane up on its side. I tape this off. I mix up the 30-minute epoxy, and I get a nice consistency with the micro balloons. And then I just kind of drip it in here with a plastic coffee stirrer. You can use whatever you have. You can lay a piece of tape, masking tape. You don't even have to like press it down. It's really just to catch any sloppy drips. You can even take an old rag or something like that, you know, and pull it back just to the edge of the joint, just to catch any drips and drabs. And so then I fill that in with the epoxy, let it cure, and I can come back. And usually what I do is I make it so it doesn't overflow. There's not a bump of epoxy there. I don't want to run my finger down and feel this big weld right there. I kind of want, if anything, I want the epoxy joint to be a little concave slightly. And then I can fill that in with some like balsa light filler. And, if you go over to the RC Geek, he shows his channel. He shows a lot of refinishing foam planes, like completely sanding them down, filling in panel lines, so on and so forth. And but I'll come back. I'll do another video after I do some of the fill-in work. And it doesn't take long, and it's a little intimidating, but inside here, I don't know if the light will show it. You can see down in there. This section right here, that's micro balloons. That's epoxy and micro balloons, and it's a little darker than it usually is. It's like an off-white or an antique white because the epoxy I used had kind of a darkish tinge to it. I think it was Northeast Hobby Products, some 30-minute that I had laying around. So I've got a good weld in there, and I kind of scraped this out with an X-Acto knife and like a dental pick before I put all that together. And then, yeah, you can catch that in there. So it's the same way on both sides, this side and this side and the inside. And I might even go so far as to take a piece of fiberglass cloth or some carbon fiber and cut a patch that fits up against that outside repair, fold it up into this section here. Just give me a little peace of mind. Landings are pretty smooth with this plane, but we all have our, rough landings. Let's not joke about it. No, he's lying about it, right? We all do crappy landings. We just hope we do them when people are looking in the other direction. This was a really lame attempt. to make myself feel better after the crash. I glued everything back together, and I had a paint marker I was experimenting with. It's okay. I don't know. I think it looks like crap. Whatever. Usually when I crash a plane, I just kind of piece it together. I call it a 20-foot plane or a 10-foot plane. It looks good from 10 feet away. So, one last thing, and then I'll let you go. I covered this plane. I brushed on Minwax polyurethane, high gloss clear. All right, and it was regular polyurethane. It was an experiment, and it was. I wish I didn't do it. It yellowed in different spots, and it really gives the plane like that cool glossy look. But I will say with the gloss, it almost kind of exaggerates some of the popcorn texture of this plane. See it? And but what I did on my T28, I don't know if I did a video on that. I used the Minwax polyacrylic water base, and I brushed it on with a foam brush. I was really careful. I did the wing panels and all the horizontal and vertical stab, elevator, rudder as separate components. Let them dry, and you're going to want to do it in a place where there's some ventilation. It doesn't really bother me, but my wife was complaining a little bit. So Minwax polyacrylic satin water-based clear. Okay, you want to make sure it's water-based. And I've also read a couple things where guys are using Varathane. I haven't used it. I don't know which of the big box stores it's available, if it's like an exclusive at Lowe's. But you can check, probably just check online, Home Depot or Lowe's. And so, yeah, stay away from regular polyurethane. It sucks. So just don't even, if you, that's all you have laying around, you're like, oh, I'll try it. Don't try it. It sucks. So, all right, I'll do another video. I'll do a part 2. And, I'll fill that in. I'll come back and show you some of the other things I do. And, this is the cowl, the front of the cowl. I didn't have to do any gluing on this. I did block C on the front of it to sharpen up the edges. I just put a piece of sandpaper on this 12 by 12 piece of tile that I have back here. Put a piece of 100 grit and just put it nose down and block sanded that, kind of sharpen up some of those edges. I don't know if you can see that or not. And then I just shot that with some Rust-Oleum Ultra Cover in white gloss. And it's a foam plane. I mean, it's going to look like a foam plane, but this, if you look at the graphics on the plane, here's this piece. Comes back to just in front of the letters there. So you can see it had some blue right on the nose here. It came up. This section here was blue. It's still a little tacky. But I just decided to do it white, and then I got some other blue paint that's kind of going to match. And I should be able to tie it all together pretty nicely. So. And hopefully it'll be at least a 10-foot plane. All right, guys, thanks for watching. If you found the video useful, hit the subscribe button. I'm going to be doing part 2 on this. I'm also going to be doing a video on some of the tools and things that I find useful in the hobby. And one of those is this stand right here from Ernst, E-A-R-N-S-T, Ernst Ultra Stand. It's collapsible. These pieces come out. I'll talk some more about that later, where I got it. But I've had one of these on my bench for the past over 15 years, maybe close to 20. So Ernst Ultra Stand, you can check them out on eBay, Horizon, maybe not Horizon, Amazon. All right, that's it. Go spend some more time on this windy, rainy, cloudy day fixing up the Extra. So when the weather clears up, we can get her back up in the air. All right, guys, Will from Radio Flight. See you at the field.